The black Mercedes cut through Seoul's afternoon traffic like a knife through water. Inside the back seat, Yuna Park pressed her phone against her ear so hard it hurt. Her perfectly styled hair was starting to fall loose. Her expensive makeup could not hide the panic in her eyes. What do you mean they canceled? Her voice cracked with desperation. Richard, this is a $10 billion deal. $10 billion. The voice on the other end delivered more terrible news. Yuna's hand started shaking. She made another call immediately. Susan, I need interpreter services right now. Japanese and Mandarin. No, I cannot wait until next week. The meeting is in 90 minutes. Another rejection. Another door closing. Yuna stared out the window at the towers of Seoul's business district rushing past. Somewhere in one of those buildings, 3 delegations were gathering. Japanese executives, Chinese business people, German engineers, all waiting for a meeting that would decide the future of Park Technologies. Without interpreters, the meeting was dead. Without the meeting, her company was dead. In the driver's seat, Marcus Williams kept his eyes on the road. His hands were steady on the wheel. He had been driving Yuna's Mercedes for 3 years now. 3 years of listening to her business calls. 3 years of being treated like furniture. 3 years of being invisible. Yuna never asked his name, never looked at him directly, never said thank you or good morning. He was just the driver, just the help, just another black face that did not matter in her perfect Korean world. Find me someone. Yuna shouted into her phone. I do not care what it costs. $50,000. $100,000. Just find me translators who speak Japanese, Mandarin, and German. Marcus adjusted the car's air conditioning. The temperature was rising along with Yuna's panic. He reached toward the radio controls to turn on some calming music. Keep your hands on the wheel. Yuna snapped without looking up from her phone. You are hired to drive, not touch my things. Just do your job and stay quiet. Marcus pulled his hand back. His face showed nothing, but inside, something old and familiar stirred. The feeling of being less than human. The weight of being judged before speaking. The exhaustion of proving his worth over and over to people who would never truly see him. He had felt this feeling in university classrooms where professors assumed he was an athlete, not a scholar. In diplomatic meetings where foreign officials directed questions to his white colleagues instead of him. In job interviews where he was always not quite the right fit despite perfect qualifications. 3 years ago, that feeling had cost him everything. Yuna made another call. This one went straight to voicemail. Then another. Her hands were shaking badly now. Mascara was starting to run under her eyes. Marcus knew things that Yuna did not know he knew. He had been listening to her phone calls for 3 years. He knew that Park Technologies was 3 months away from bankruptcy. He knew that this merger was not about growth or expansion. It was about survival. 2,000 people worked for Park Technologies. 2,000 families depended on their jobs. If this deal died, all those people would lose everything. Yuna would lose her company, her reputation, her legacy. Everything she had built would turn to dust. The merger was with 3 companies. Tanaka Automotive from Japan, Chun Digital from China, Mueller Engineering from Germany. Together, they would create the largest technology manufacturing partnership in Asia. The deal was worth $10 billion, but it required perfect communication across 4 languages. It required understanding Japanese business culture, where honor and respect meant everything. It required knowing Chinese negotiation styles, where directness was valued over politeness. It required German precision, where every word in a contract carried weight. Without professional interpreters who understood these cultural differences, the deal would collapse in minutes. One wrong word could insult someone. One cultural mistake could end everything. Marcus watched Yuna in the rearview mirror. She was calling every interpreter service in Seoul, then in Tokyo, then in Beijing. Everyone was booked or unavailable. The solar flare activity had disrupted global communications, and every international meeting in 3 countries needed interpreters today. Please, Yuna was begging now. Please, there must be someone. Anyone. Marcus made a decision. He had been silent for 3 years. He had accepted being invisible because his mother needed cancer treatment and his daughter needed medical school tuition. Pride did not pay hospital bills. Dignity did not cover university costs. But today, watching Una fall apart, Marcus remembered something important. He remembered who he used to be before the budget cuts, before the age discrimination, before he became invisible. He lowered the partition between the front and back seats. "Excuse me, Miss Park." Una's head snapped up. Her eyes were furious at being interrupted. "I told you to stay quiet and drive. What languages do you need for the meeting?" Marcus asked calmly. The question hung in the air like smoke. Una stared at him like he had spoken in a foreign language. "What?" she said. "For your merger meeting." Marcus continued in the same calm voice. "What languages do the delegation speak?" Una's mouth opened and closed. "That is not your concern. That is not your business." "Japanese and Mandarin," Marcus said quietly. "German for the engineering contracts. Korean for your team. Hindi and Arabic for the financial documents. Portuguese and French for the European subsidiary paperwork. Spanish for the South America manufacturing partners." The car fell completely silent except for the hum of the engine and the sound of soul traffic outside. Una stared at Marcus's reflection in the rear-view mirror. Really looked at him for the first time in 3 years. "How do you know that?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I have been listening to your business calls for 3 years," Marcus said simply. "I know every detail of this merger. I know every problem your company faces. I know exactly what is at stake today." "But how do you know about the languages?" Una asked. Marcus met her eyes in the mirror. When he spoke, his voice was different. Not the quiet, careful voice of a driver anymore. Something else. Something that carried weight and authority. "Because I speak all 9 of those languages fluently, Ms. Park. And if you would like, I can interpret your meeting today." Una's phone slipped from her hand onto the leather seat. Her face went pale. She looked at Marcus like she was seeing a ghost. "You speak 9 languages?" The words came out in a choked whisper. "Yes, ma'am." "Who are you?" Una asked. Marcus pulled the Mercedes to a smooth stop at a red light. He turned slightly in his seat, so Una could see his face properly for the first time in 3 years. "My name is Marcus Williams. I have a Ph.D. in International Relations from Georgetown University and a master's degree in Applied Linguistics from Harvard. I worked as a senior interpreter for the United Nations for 28 years. I specialize in high-stakes multinational negotiations, G7 summits, trade agreements, crisis mediations between countries." Each word hit Una like a physical blow. The Mercedes turned into the underground parking garage of Park Technologies headquarters. Una's mind was spinning. Her driver spoke 9 languages. Her driver had a Ph.D. Her driver had worked for the United Nations for 28 years. It sounded impossible. It sounded like a lie. But something in Marcus's voice made her believe him. "Marcus," she said carefully, "I need proof. I need to know this is real before I bring you into the most important meeting of my life." "I understand," Marcus said. He parked the car in Una's reserved spot and turned off the engine. "What would you like me to do?" Before Una could answer, her phone rang. The screen showed an international number. Japan. Her blood turned to ice. "That is Tanaka's personal number. He is calling 30 minutes early." Her voice was shaking. "If I answer without an interpreter, it could insult him. If I do not answer, it could insult him worse." Marcus turned in his seat to face her directly. "May I answer the call, Miss Park?" Una stared at the ringing phone. Every second that passed was another insult to the Japanese executive. Every ring said that Park Technologies did not respect him enough to answer immediately. She handed Marcus the phone. Marcus pressed the answer button and spoke. The words that came from his mouth were pure Japanese, not simple tourist Japanese, not basic business Japanese. This was formal, elegant Japanese that belonged in diplomatic meetings and corporate boardrooms. His entire voice had changed. Gone was the quiet, careful tone of a driver. In its place was confidence, authority, the voice of someone who had spoken to presidents and prime ministers. Una could not understand words, but she could hear the music in them, the respect, the careful politeness, the cultural awareness that every syllable carried. The voice on the other end responded. Yuna recognized Mr. Tanaka's deep, serious tone. He sounded pleased, almost warm. Marcus and Tanaka spoke for 5 minutes. Marcus's face remained calm and professional. His posture had changed completely. He sat straight, shoulders back. This was not her driver anymore. This was someone else entirely. When Marcus ended the call, he handed the phone back to Yuna. What did he say? Yuna demanded. What did you tell him? Mr. Tanaka called to express concern about the interpreter situation. He heard through his contacts that many services were unavailable today. Marcus's voice was calm. I assured him that Park Technologies has arranged for proper interpretation services. I told him that you've been personally studying Japanese business customs to show your deep respect for his family's company legacy. But I have not studied anything. Yuna said. You have now, Marcus replied, because I'm going to teach you everything you need to know in the next 30 minutes. Yuna felt dizzy. What else did you tell him? I explained that today's meeting will reflect the proper respect that Tanaka Automotive deserves. That Park Technologies views this merger not as a business transaction, but as a partnership between families that will last for generations. Is that true? Yuna asked. It needs to be true, Marcus said quietly. In Japanese business culture, relationships are everything. Mr. Tanaka is not just looking for profit. He is looking for honor, for legacy, for a partner who understands that business is personal. Yuna nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand that Marcus knew things she had never even thought about. They took the elevator up to the executive floor. Yuna's assistant, a young woman named Hannah, rushed toward them with panic in her eyes. Ms. Park, thank goodness you are here. The German delegation just sent an angry message about the preliminary contracts. They are threatening to leave. Yuna's stomach dropped. What message? Show me. Hannah pulled out her tablet and showed Yuna an email written in German. Yuna could not read German. She only recognized a few words, and none of them looked friendly. What does it say? Yuna asked desperately. Marcus looked at the tablet screen. He read silently for a moment, then spoke. They are upset because your legal team used informal pronouns in the contract language. In German, there are formal and informal ways to address someone. Your team used the informal version, which suggests you see them as subordinates or friends, not as equal business partners. Hannah stared at Marcus. Who are you? This is Marcus Williams, Yuna said, making a quick decision. He is our interpreter for today's meeting. Marcus, what do we do about the Germans? I will send them a response immediately, Marcus said. May I use a computer? Hannah led them to a small conference room. Marcus sat at the computer and began typing in German. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. The words appeared on the screen in perfect formal German. After 2 minutes, he pressed send. What did you tell them? Yuna asked. I apologize on behalf of Park Technologies. I explained that the informal pronouns were a translation error, not a sign of disrespect. I assured them that the final contracts will use proper formal language that reflects their status as valued equal partners. Yuna's phone buzzed. An email reply from the German delegation. Marcus read it and smiled slightly. They accept the apology. They will attend the meeting. Hannah looked at Marcus with new respect. Where did Ms. Park find you? Before anyone could answer, Jin-Ho Kim, the CFO, entered the room. He was a thin man in an expensive suit with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Yuna, we need to talk about the interpreter situation. Who did you hire? I need to see their credentials before we... He stopped when he saw Marcus. His eyes narrowed. Who is this? This is Marcus Williams. Yuna said, our interpreter for the meeting. Jin-Ho looked Marcus up and down. His expression was not friendly. I see. And what are his qualifications? Ph.D. in International Relations from Georgetown University. Yuna said, Master's in Applied Linguistics from Harvard. 28 years as a senior interpreter for the United Nations. Jin-Ho's eyebrows went up. Impressive credentials. Where has he been working recently? The question hung in the air like a trap. Yuna felt her throat go dry. He has been with Park Technologies for 3 years, she said carefully. In what department? Jinho asked. Yuna could not answer. The silence stretched too long. Jinho's eyes moved from Yuna to Marcus to the expensive Mercedes key fob on the table. Understanding dawned on his face. I see, Jinho said coldly. Yuna, may I speak with you privately? They stepped into the hallway. Jinho's voice was low and angry. Are you insane? You want to use your driver for a $10 billion negotiation? He has the qualifications, Yuna said defensively. I do not care about his qualifications. Jinho hissed. This is about credibility, about appearances. The Japanese delegation will take one look at him and wonder why we are not using a professional service. He is a professional. He worked for the UN for almost 30 years. And now he drives your car. Jinho's face was red. Yuna, think about what you're doing. This merger is our last chance. We cannot risk it on someone who... He stopped himself, but Yuna knew what he was going to say. Someone who looks like that. Someone who is black. Someone who does not fit the image of a high-level interpreter. The conference room was the largest in Park Technologies' headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the Seoul skyline stretching to the mountains beyond. A long, polished table sat in the center, with leather chairs arranged perfectly. Everything looked expensive and impressive. But Yuna felt sick to her stomach as she walked in. 3 groups of people sat on opposite sides of the table. They were not mixing. They were not talking. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. On the left sat the Japanese delegation. Mr. Tanaka was in the center, a man with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. 2 younger executives flanked him like guards. On the right sat the Chinese group. Ms. Chun was checking her tablet with quick, impatient movements. Her assistant whispered something to her, and she frowned. Near the window stood the Germans. Mr. Mueller was reading contract documents with a red pen in his hand, marking things that displeased him. Nobody was smiling. Nobody looked happy to be here. Yuna entered with Marcus 1 step behind her. Every eye in the room turned to look at them. Jinho Kim and Sumi Lee were already seated on the Park Technologies side of the table. Jinho's face was tight with worry. Sumi looked confused about who Marcus was. Marcus moved forward before Yuna could speak. He walked directly to Mr. Tanaka and bowed. Not a small, polite bow. A deep, formal bow that showed great respect. He held the position for exactly the right amount of time. Then he spoke in Japanese. The words flowed like music. Formal, elegant, perfect. Mr. Tanaka's stern face changed completely. His eyes widened with surprise. Then pleasure. He stood up and bowed back to Marcus, speaking Japanese with warmth in his voice. The 2 younger Japanese executives looked at each other with shock. Marcus straightened and moved to Ms. Chun. He did not bow to her. Chinese business culture was different. Instead, he offered his hand for a firm handshake and spoke in rapid Mandarin. His accent was perfect Beijing pronunciation. Ms. Chen's impatient expression melted away. She shook his hand and responded in Mandarin, her voice carrying respect. Then Marcus approached Mr. Mueller. He spoke in flawless German with a Frankfurt accent, precise words, clear meaning, no wasted language. Mueller lowered his red pen and actually smiled. He responded in German and shook Marcus's hand with both of his own. In 90 seconds, Marcus had transformed the atmosphere in the room. The 3 delegations were no longer tense strangers. They were looking at him with curiosity and respect. Yuna stood frozen by the door, watching this happen. She had never seen anything like it. Marcus turned back to the delegations and spoke first in Japanese, then in Mandarin, then in German. He gestured toward Yuna. What did you tell them? Yuna whispered when Marcus came back to her side. I introduce you as the CEO who has prepared for this meeting with great care and cultural sensitivity. I told them you are honored by their presence and grateful for their patience today. The meeting began. For the first hour, everything went smoothly. Marcus translated technical specifications between 3 languages while making it look easy. When Mr. Tanaka spoke in Japanese, Marcus did not just translate the words. He explained the cultural meaning behind them. Mr. Tanaka is saying the timeline seems rushed. Marcus would say, but in Japanese business culture, this is actually a polite way of saying he needs more time to consult with his family board. He is not rejecting the proposal. He is asking for respect for his decision-making process. Yuna would nod and respond appropriately. Marcus would translate her words into perfect formal Japanese. Mr. Tanaka would smile and nod. When Ms. Chun spoke in rapid Mandarin, Marcus kept up effortlessly. Ms. Chun is saying the profit sharing seems unbalanced, Marcus explained. She wants to know the exact calculations. In Chinese business culture, she is testing whether we have done our homework. She respects directness. Give her the specific numbers. Yuna pulled up the spreadsheets. Marcus translated the financial details with perfect accuracy. Ms. Chun nodded with approval. When Mr. Mueller raised concerns in German, Marcus translated the technical engineering language without missing a beat. Everything was going perfectly. Too perfectly. Then the crisis hit. Ms. Chen's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and her face went dark. She spoke quickly in Mandarin to her assistant. The assistant's eyes went wide. He showed her something on his tablet. Ms. Chen stood up abruptly. I apologize, but we have discovered a serious problem. The room went silent. Our Shanghai office just informed me that Part Technology's intellectual property protections are insufficient for our standards. Her English was sharp and cold. We cannot proceed with a company that has such weak security measures. Yuna felt the floor drop out from under her. This was it. The deal was dying right in front of her eyes. What specific security concerns did Shanghai identify? Marcus asked calmly in Mandarin. Ms. Chen looked surprised that he was speaking directly to her. She responded in rapid Mandarin, her tone angry. Marcus listened carefully, his face neutral. He asked several questions in Mandarin. Ms. Chen's assistant joined conversation, speaking urgently. After 2 minutes of conversation that nobody else in the room could understand, Marcus nodded. Ms. Park, he said in English. The security breach that Ms. Chan is referring to was resolved yesterday evening. Our sole IT team detected an attempted intrusion into our systems and implemented immediate countermeasures. The intrusion was unsuccessful. Yuna stared at him. How do you know about that? Because I coordinated with our IT team and with Ms. Chen's Shanghai director last night. Marcus said calmly, I speak Mandarin. When I heard Shanghai was concerned about our security protocols, I called him directly to explain our response. Ms. Chen was staring at Marcus with new respect. You spoke with Director Liu? Yes, Liu Wei. We discussed the attempted breach in detail. He was satisfied with our security response. Would you like me to conference him now so he can confirm this to you directly? Ms. Chen spoke to her assistant in Mandarin. The assistant made a call. 5 minutes later, they had Director Liu on video conference. Marcus spoke with Liu in fluent Mandarin for 10 minutes. The conversation was technical and detailed. Marcus explained security protocols, response times, and preventive measures with the expertise of an IT specialist. When the call ended, Ms. Chen looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then she sat back down. Mr. Williams, she said in English, your response time was impressive. Part Technologies clearly take security seriously. We can proceed. Yuna felt like she could breathe again. But the crisis was not over. Mr. Tanaka raised his hand slightly. He spoke in quiet Japanese. His tone was serious, almost sad. Marcus listened, his expression growing thoughtful. He translated for the room. Mr. Tanaka is expressing concern about long-term cultural compatibility. He is asking whether Part Technologies truly understands the commitment required for a generational partnership. This was a deeper issue. Yuna could feel it. This was not about money or contracts. This was about something more important. Marcus spoke directly to Mr. Tanaka in Japanese. He talked for several minutes. His voice carried emotion now. Respect. That night, Yuna could not sleep. She sat in her home office, staring at her computer screen. The merger documents were signed. $10 billion secured. Her company was saved. 2,000 jobs were safe. All because of Marcus Williams. She typed his name into the search engine. Her hands were shaking slightly. The first result made her breath catch. A United Nations press release from 15 years ago. There was a photo. Marcus stood in the background of a diplomatic meeting. Behind him were 3 world leaders shaking hands. The caption read, "Senior Interpreter Marcus Williams facilitated breakthrough in trade negotiations." Una clicked another link. An article about preventing an international crisis. Marcus had mediated between 2 countries on the edge of war. His translation work had helped them find common ground. Diplomats praise his cultural sensitivity and technical expertise. Another article, another commendation, another photo of Marcus in the background of history being made. She found his academic papers published in international relations journals. His thesis on cross-cultural communication had been cited by scholars hundreds of times. There were awards, recognition from multiple governments, letters of recommendation from ambassadors and ministers. One letter was from a former Secretary General of the United Nations praising Marcus as one of the finest diplomatic interpreters of his generation. Una's throat felt tight. She kept searching. Then she found the article that explained everything. It was 3 years old. The headline read, "UN Budget Cuts Eliminate Senior Diplomatic Positions." She read through the list of names. Marcus Williams was there, along with dozens of other experienced diplomats let go despite their expertise. The article quoted several of them talking about age discrimination in the job market, about being told they were overqualified, about struggling to find work after decades of service. Una closed her laptop. She put her face in her hands. For 3 years, she had been paying minimum wage to one of the world's most accomplished diplomats. For 3 years, she had treated him like he was invisible, like he was nothing. She remembered every casual cruelty, every dismissive word, every time she had snapped at him for small things, every time she had thrown her briefcase into the back seat without saying thank you, every time she had talked on the phone about him like he was not even there. The memory that hurt most was from that very morning. Keep your hands on the wheel. You're hired to drive, not think. Marcus had been preparing to help her for 3 years, learning about her business, understanding the merger details, getting ready for the moment when she might finally need him. And she had never once asked his name. Una felt tears on her cheeks. She was not someone who cried often, but tonight the shame was too heavy to carry. The next morning, Una called an emergency board meeting before regular business hours. Every executive director needed to be there. No exceptions. Jin-Ho Kim arrived first, looking worried. "What is this about? Did something happen with the merger?" "Just wait," Una said. Sumi Lee came next, then Miho Choi, then the other board members. They filled the conference room with confused faces and nervous energy. "I need to tell you something about Marcus Williams," Una began. Miho crossed his arms. "The driver you use as our interpreter? Una, I still think that was a dangerous risk." "Let me finish," Una said firmly. She pulled up her laptop and connected it to the conference room screen. A UN citation appeared on the monitor. Presidential Commendation for Preventing Trade War Escalation, 2018. Awarded to Senior Interpreter Marcus Williams. The room went quiet. Una clicked to the next document. Lead Negotiator for the Asia-Pacific Economic Framework, 2016. Marcus Williams, United Nations Diplomatic Corps. Jin-Ho leaned forward, staring at the screen. Another document appeared. Personal letter of recommendation from former UN Secretary General Kim Moon-soo. Una read aloud. "Marcus Williams is one of the most gifted cultural liaisons I've had the privilege of working with. His ability to bridge divides between nations is unmatched." Sumi's mouth fell open. For 3 years, Una's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "We have employed one of the world's most accomplished diplomats, and we use him to drive me to lunch meetings." The silence in the room was absolute. "Marcus Williams does not work in our operations department." Una continued. "As of today, he is Executive Vice President of International Relations. Salary $400,000 annually plus equity. He reports directly to me." "Una," Miho started to object. "I am not finished." Yuna's voice cut through his protest. Marcus will also head our new Cultural Intelligence Division. Budget $5 million annually. Staff size and structure as choice. She closed the laptop. Any questions about Mr. Williams' qualifications? No one spoke. Good, because he just saved this company and 2,000 jobs. And we owe him more than we can ever repay. After the meeting ended, the executives filed out silently, but Jinho stayed behind. Yuna, he said quietly, I owe you an apology, and I owe Marcus Williams more than an apology. We all do, Yuna said. Yesterday I said things about him, about his credibility, about appearances. Jinho looked ashamed. I judged him without knowing anything about him. I saw his skin color and his job title, and I made assumptions. I did worse, Yuna said. I worked with him every day for 3 years and never once saw him as a person. Jinho nodded slowly. What are you going to do? I am going to try to make things right, if he will let me. Marcus arrived at Park Technologies headquarters at his usual time. He had received a message from Yuna asking him to come to her office, but he still wore his driver's uniform. He did not own a business suit. 3 years of minimum wage had not left money for expensive clothes. When he entered Yuna's office, he found her standing by the window, looking out at Seoul. Marcus, she said, please sit down. He sat in one of the leather chairs across from her desk. It felt strange. For 3 years he had stood while she sat. The reversal was uncomfortable. Yuna sat down across from him. She slid a folder across the desk. This is your new employment contract. Executive Vice President of International Relations. $400,000 annually plus equity options. Full benefits, including health insurance for your family. Retirement contributions. Everything. Marcus opened the folder slowly. He read through the documents with careful attention. His face showed nothing. This is generous, he finally said. It is what you deserve. It is actually less than what you deserve. Yuna paused. Marcus, I need to tell you something. I spent last night researching your background. I read about your work at the UN, the crises you prevented, the agreements you facilitated, the lives you touched. Marcus remained silent, listening. I also read about the budget cuts, about how they let you go despite your experience, about how you applied for hundreds of jobs and kept getting rejected. Yuna's voice cracked slightly. And I realized that I did the same thing to you that everyone else did. I saw your job title instead of your abilities. I saw your appearance instead of your mind. Ms. Park, please let me finish. Yuna took a deep breath. 6 months passed like a dream that Marcus kept expecting to end. But every morning he woke up in his new apartment, put on one of his new suits, and went to his corner office on the 28th floor. Every morning proved it was real. His office was always busy now. 3 computer monitors showed live feeds from Tokyo, Beijing, and Berlin. His Cultural Intelligence Division had grown to 15 people. Smart, talented people who understood that business was about more than just money. On this particular morning, Marcus's assistant knocked on his door. Her name was Rina, a young Korean woman who spoke 4 languages and had a gift for organization. Mr. Williams, you have 3 calls waiting. Mr. Tanaka from Japan wants to discuss the expansion plans. Ms. Chen's office sent contract revisions. And there's a new call from someone at Samsung Electronics. Marcus smiled. Put Samsung through first. Then I will call Mr. Tanaka. The Samsung executive introduced himself as Juno Park, their head of human resources. His voice was excited and slightly nervous. Mr. Williams, we need your advice. Something unusual happened last week. Juno paused. Our night janitor solved a coding problem that our engineering team had been stuck on for 2 months. Marcus leaned forward with interest. Tell me more. His name is Doyen. He is 60 years old. Works cleaning our offices every night. Juno sounded amazed. One of our engineers left code on a whiteboard. The next morning, there was a solution written underneath. Perfect solution. We checked the security cameras. It was Doyen. Did you talk to him? Marcus asked. Yes. He has a PhD in computer science from Seoul National University. He was a lead researcher for 15 years. Lost his position during corporate restructuring 5 years ago. Nobody would hire him after that. He said he was too old. Juno's voice grew quiet. Mr. Williams, we heard about your story, about how Park Technologies found you. We want to do this right. How do we fix this? Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. This was the fourth call like this he had received in 2 months. Companies across Korea were starting to wake up. First, you apologize to Doyen, Marcus said. You acknowledge that your company failed to see his value. Then you offer him a position that matches his abilities, not as a favor, as recognition of what he deserves. We already prepared an offer. Lead engineer position, full benefits, salary that reflects his experience. Juno paused. But, Mr. Williams, how do we make sure this never happens again? How do we stop missing people like Doyen? I can help you with that, Marcus said. Park Technologies has developed a system. We call it blind skill assessment. I can send you the framework. After the call ended, Marcus sat back in his chair. For companies in 2 months. It was starting. The change he had dreamed about was actually happening. His phone buzzed. A text from Una. Board meeting in 30 minutes. Big announcement. Marcus walked to the executive conference room. The same room where 6 months ago, Una had revealed his true background to the board. The same room where everything had changed. Today, every seat was filled, but the atmosphere was completely different from that tense meeting. People smiled when Marcus entered. Jinho Kim stood up to shake his hand warmly. Sumi Lee pulled out a chair for him next to Una. Thank you all for coming. Una began. She looked different now. Still professional, still sharp, but there was something softer in her eyes. Something more human. I have several announcements about the direction of Park Technologies. She pulled up a presentation on the screen. 6 months ago, this company was 3 months from bankruptcy. Today, we are profitable. The merger with Tanaka, Chun, and Mueller is exceeding all projections. Our stock price has tripled. Applause filled the room. But more importantly, Una continued, we have transformed how we think about talent. Marcus Williams' Cultural Intelligence Division has not only managed our international partnerships, it has changed our entire corporate culture. The next slide showed statistics. In 6 months, we have implemented blind skill audits across every department. We have discovered incredible talent that we have been overlooking. A cafeteria worker who speaks 6 languages is now our regional manager for Southeast Asia. A parking attendant with an MBA is now a strategy consultant. A maintenance worker with an engineering degree is now on our product development team. Marcus felt pride swell in his chest. These were not just statistics. These were people whose lives had changed. Families who now had hope. Other companies are watching us, Una said. Samsung, LG, Hyundai. They are calling Marcus for advice. They want to learn from what we have built here. She smiled. We are not just changing Park Technologies. We are changing how Korea thinks about hidden talent. Sumi raised her hand. How many people have we helped place in better positions? In our own company, 47 people, Una answered. Through our consulting with other companies, over 200, and the number grows every week. After the meeting, Marcus and Una stood by the window, looking out at Seoul. I got an interesting call yesterday. Una said, from the Minister of Employment. The Korean government wants to implement our blind skill audit system nationwide. They want you to lead the initiative. Marcus turned to look at her. What did you tell them? I told them you would consider it. But only if Park Technologies can be part of the process. Only if we can ensure this becomes permanent change, not just a temporary program. And what do you think? Marcus asked, should I do it? Una was quiet for a moment. Marcus, 6 months ago, I was a CEO who only saw people as tools, as resources to be used. You taught me to see people as human beings with stories and potential and worth. She looked at him. If you can teach that to an entire country, you should do it. Marcus nodded slowly. I will think about it. That evening, Marcus drove to the hospital, not as a visitor, but as family. His mother's cancer treatment had been successful. The expensive therapy that he could now afford had worked. She was in remission. He found her in her room, reading a book. She looked up and smiled when she saw him. Her face was thin, but her eyes were bright. "There's my boy," she said. "My successful boy." Marcus kissed her forehead. "How are you feeling, Mama?" "Better every day." She patted the bed next to her. "Sit. Tell me about work." Marcus told her about the Samsung call, about Doyen the janitor who was really a PhD computer scientist, about the government initiative, about all the lives that were changing. His mother listened with tears in her eyes. "Baby, do you remember what I told you when you lost your UN position? You told me that closed doors teach us to build new doors." Marcus said, "That is right." She squeezed his hand. "You spent 3 years in a closed room, but you did not sit in the dark. You learned. You prepared. You waited for the right moment. And when that moment came, you were ready." "I was angry for a long time, Mama," Marcus admitted. "Angry at the UN for letting me go. Angry at all the companies that rejected me. Angry at UNA for treating me like I was invisible.